Pause is brought to you by Defend Drill, Cough, Expectorant, Defend Drill, Breathe Easy and Feel Better. My name is Elton Brobe. Let me cross you to Parliament now, where the minority side is holding a news conference on the 1 cedi levy imposed on petroleum products. Kojo Ponkroma is a ranking member on the Economic Committee.
They will do the next opposite, the exact opposite. But they made these firm promises with a view to scam the unsuspecting voter and trick the voter into giving them power. Today, we have come full cycle on the energy sector levy. This hypocrisy, this unethical behavior will not be allowed to pass. In an attempt to normalize the hypocrisy and betrayal of trust, the NDC has recruited its mouthpieces to attempt to deceive Ghanaians that it is only a 1 Ghana cedi sacrifice and all must go along. And so-called neutral who does the NDC's bidding in this scam should be ashamed of himself or herself. You are part of the problem. The NDC hypocrisy has now been exposed by the fact that in their bid to justify what they knew they will do, they have now come up with confusing explanations as to why this levy is needed and inevitable. His Excellency President Mahama on May 13, 2025, at African CEO Summit in Abidjan, this is what he said, and I quote, "We are using the proceeds from the energy sector levy to pay down the arrears," unquote. Honorable John Jinapo, the energy minister, also on June 4, 2025, this is what also he said on Joy FM, City FM, and Joy News. I quote, "This levy is not intended to pay off legacy debt. The liquid fuels we currently purchase are not part of the tariff structure. We require over $1 billion this year, $1 billion this year alone to procure liquid fuels." So, members of the press, which is which? Is this levy to pay debt or to buy fuel? The NDC has forgotten that they had announced earlier that they will finish the payment of the energy sector debt by December 2026. His Excellency President Mahama at the summit in Abidjan also said, announcing at the conference that he will clear the energy sector debt by December 2026. At the time this was announced, they had not told the people of Ghana that they were going to introduce a levy to attempt to do this, assuming this levy is for debt payment. So is it that they had planned this levy all along and lied that they won't impose a levy? Or didn't have a clue but were just promising? Further, assuming without admitting that this is for debt payment, how can you pay $3.1 billion, that is amounting to 80 billion cedis, total debt, with 9 billion cedis, which will accrue by December 2026 from this levy? Is that even feasible? And if indeed this is for debt payment, why are they, after telling us that the debt will be paid by 2026 December, now turning around to say even the levy is not enough? Ladies and gentlemen, the hypocrisy and the ill intent from the beginning has now been exposed by their confusing reasoning. Members of the press, it is very important to know the very clandestine manner in which the NDC sneaked this bill into Parliament without prior notice and rushed it through in the dead of the night, simple to avoid scrutiny. This bill was never advertised on the order paper for the day. In fact, it was not even discussed at the business committee meeting prior. It was not included in the business statement for the week. Instead, it was sneaked through by a one-page order paper addendum, getting to the end of sitting on the said day under a certificate of urgency. And the majority side whipped it through, refusing to pull the brakes for any form of consultation with civil society, driver unions, or everyday Ghanaians. Why would a party that campaign on the grounds that they were championing the interests of Ghanaians now be sneaking tax bills into Parliament in the middle of the night and rushing it through before Ghanaians wake up? Why will a party that claimed they had the Ghanaian interests at heart refuse to allow debate and public representation on tax bills, which they didn't advertise at budget time? Members of the press, the clandestine approach also exposes the ills of the government in this matter and will not be allowed to pass. At this juncture, I will allow my colleague, the ranking member for Economy and Development, to continue. Thank you.
So thank you, Honorable Ranking Member for the Committee on Energy. And he has set the tone by highlighting the very clandestine manner in which the government brought this bill to Parliament. Wasn't discussed at a business committee meeting, wasn't listed on the order paper, it wasn't even mentioned during the budget hearing. And then getting to the end of hearing for the day, an order paper addendum was brought in and it was quickly hurried through. Even efforts from the minority leader to request that we suspend and allow more consultation were refused. And that's why you realize that before its passage, our side had to wash our hands of what was being done to the people of Ghana and leave the chamber. Now, you are beginning to notice that, for example, the Chamber of Oil Distributors are openly calling it out that nobody was consulted. And this was smuggled in and infringed on the people of Ghana. And they've been pushing back, and now government says it will wait for a few days before it still goes ahead to implement it. You are also noticing that the driver unions are shocked and are calling government out for what it has done and are threatening even demonstrations in some instances. Now, we want to take a moment to highlight some things about the levy that, because the people of Ghana didn't get an opportunity to have a full discussion on it, have come up and we think we need to draw your attention to. First is the rate that is being charged. Ghanaians will bear witness that this levy is being charged at a rate of 8% per transaction. 8% per transaction. And this makes it one of the highest tax rates introduced in Ghana in a single instance. If you study the history of VAT and many of our other revenue handles, you notice that at the first instance of introduction, sometimes it's 1%, 1.5%, or 2%, and then maybe as the years go by, you may find some add-ons and then a consolidation. For this particular levy, at the first instance, the government is charging the people of Ghana 8%. And this is one of the highest rates at first instance in terms of taxation that is being introduced in the Republic. Again, even if this levy wasn't hypocritical, as has been mentioned by my brother, and had an honest justification, why would the government impose a levy with an 8% transaction rate on the people of Ghana? It's just simple wickedness. And to think that this 8% is on every gallon of fuel, actually cascading down to every liter of fuel, to pay for the inefficiencies in the energy sector, is simply a stab in the back of many people who believe the government at their word that they will not impose levies to pay for the inefficiencies in the energy sector. Now, for every 1 gallon of petrol product that you buy or diesel that you buy, this government is, because of this tax, going to take an additional 4 cedis and 50 pesos from you. That is 8%. We recall the NDC's claim that the then MPP government had done no work for Ghanaians when they are transferring their money, and therefore had no business in charging 1% levy on Momo transactions. So we ask you, what is the work that the NDC has done when you are buying your fuel, for which reason they are now charging 8% tax on it? Specifically, let's take a moment to compare this Doomsor levy, the D-Levy, to the E-levy that was recently repealed. It will be recalled that when the MPP introduced the E-levy, our then colleagues in opposition bastardized it and told Ghanaians that it represented thievery. In fact, they used the expression pickpocketing. Unfortunately, a good number of Ghanaians bought into their propaganda. So let's compare the E-levy to the Doomsor levy, which has now been introduced by the NDC. First, the E-levy was advertised in the budget. It was followed up with town hall meetings, and it onboarded extensive public consultations before the bill was finally passed in Parliament. This Doomsor levy was smuggled through to avoid any form of public engagement, consultation, or scrutiny. It was neither advertised in the budget nor in the main order paper for the day. And that's why we say that this amounts to midnight robbery. The E-levy had an effective rate of 1% per transaction, yet it was described as pickpocketing. This Doomsor levy has the effective rate of 8% per transaction. And that's why we say that it is midnight robbery. The E-levy avoided transactions that were not in excess of 100 Ghana cedis, you will recall. And the argument that was canvassed at the time was that we had to create some room for the very poor to be excluded from it. Yet the E-levy was bastardized. The poor were exempted. This Doomsor levy has no minimum threshold. The poor are actually the most affected because, unlike the rich, for the poor, every single cedi counts a lot more. And that's why we say it's midnight robbery. The E-levy, number 4, was payable only by people who opted to do money transfers. This Doomsor levy is payable by all Ghanaians, unless you decide to work every day. Because even if you're a farmer and you are buying fuel for your tractors to work on your farm, you will pay this Doomsor levy that this government has just imposed. It's payable by everybody. Number 5, while the E-levy had a limited cascading effect, this Doomsor levy has a total 100% cascading effect because it affects transportation. And consequently, any item that is transported, food, clothes, whatever, once you are transporting it, there's a cascading effect that eventually, when we go full circle, will be paid by the everyday Ghanaian. Number 6, the E-levy was designed to yield approximately 2 billion Ghana cedis from persons who elected to do transfers or transactions. Now, colleagues, you are here in Parliament. You will recall the day that the E-levy was repealed. Our good friend, the majority leader, was on his feet, shouting his voice hoarse that the government has put 2 billion cedis back into the pockets of Ghanaians. I'm sure you recall. This Doomsor levy is taking from everybody over 5.7 billion cedis for this fiscal year. So if repealing the E-levy put 2 billion back into the pockets of Ghanaians, what does introducing the Doomsor levy that takes away 5.7 billion do? In his own words, this government is taking 5.7 billion Ghana cedis from the pocket of Ghanaians. And we think it is very dishonest because if you claim that you are giving Ghanaians 2 billion back, which was so untoward, it was evil by the previous administration, how do you give back 2 billion and take 5.7 billion from the people? It's only the NDC government that does that, justifies it, and expects everybody to say that that is some smart economic approach. We, however, have some alternative suggestions to make to the government, and I'd like to highlight a few of them. The minority believes strongly that if this government is minded to pay off the energy sector debt, because you recall that part of their justification is that they want to pay off the energy sector debt. In fact, the president said he will pay it off by December 2026. And we have just done the maths for you, that if you look at what is going to accrue in the 2 years, it cannot pay off the energy sector debt. But let us assume that they are being honest with that they want to pay off the energy sector debt. We think that what the government should do is to conclude the renegotiations of the of the power purchase agreements which were started by the previous administration, and to pass on 2 things, the fuel and capacity charges into the PPAs. Government should include these in the tariff calculations to eliminate the need for off-book debts that are caused by the take-or-pay clauses in the energy sector contracts that were signed between 2013 and 2016. And you will recall that that is one of the major challenges that has created the stock of energy sector debt. The capacity charges and the take-or-pay charges, which could not be included in the tariffs. And so every now and then, a bill is sent to the finance ministry to pay, and that bill is accumulating. If the government is really intended to pay, one of the things it should do is to complete the renegotiation, move the fuel purchases and the excess capacity charges into the PPAs, so that when people consume a certain realistic amount, then they will pay. Number two, government should quicken the efforts to bring efficiency into the operations of GRIDCO and ECG to reduce transmission, distribution, and other technical losses. You have followed the arguments that part of the problem is the losses occasioned during transmission and distribution and collection. If government really means well, that is one of the areas to focus attention and front load. Number three, we're asking government to pursue the strategy that we proposed in 2024 to go heavily into renewable energy, as advertised, for example, in our manifesto, to reduce the need for fuel importation and its consequent negative impacts on the economy. And you will recall that prior to 2024, in the elections, we signaled that if the NPP was in power today, we'll focus heavily on augmenting with solar power, so that this whole thing of buying HFO and fuel for the power plants will be reduced. And you don't have to then come and impose these levies on Ghanaians at 8% to pay for the inefficiencies in the sector, contrary to the promise that you made. In closing, colleagues, it's already clear that the government intends to go ahead with the implementation of this draconian levy, and they will not listen to anybody's plea, anybody's reasoning, or anybody's alternative ideas. We as a minority group, representing over 10 million Ghanaians, and sometimes people say, oh, they are just 88. In our 88 constituencies, you will find over 10 million Ghanaians. We want to advertise that we'll be embarking on the following. Number one, we'll continuously engage the people of Ghana, civil society groups, driver unions, and the media to showcase the true impact of this draconian and negative levy that the government is imposing on us. Number two, we'll continue to stand with the groups of honest Ghanaians, the driver unions, the Chamber of Oil Marketers, who are opposing the levy or asking government to pull back and to engage better, and not to go by this midnight introduction into Parliament and using their numbers to push it through. We know the government has a lot of goodwill, but this is not the way to do things. Number three, we'll continue to stand in solidarity with the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies in their position that this downstream sector is already heavily overtaxed. And now if you add this new levy, effectively about 26% of what you are paying at the pump is all taxes. And we'll continue with our advocacy to government to withdraw this levy and adopt less painful and more pragmatic options, some of which we have suggested in this afternoon's press briefing. We are grateful to you for your attendance, and we look forward to further engagements on this subject. We'll take your questions and do a quick summary in three.
All right, thank you very much. Just please, your name and station.
Why are you giving the first bite to him?
It's for mischief purposes.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay, we can hear you. It's okay. It's okay.
My name is
Can we have some silence here, please?
Two quick questions. Honorable,
One question. One.
Okay.
You are
Basically, you are asked to come and address us on the economic component of the E-levy. But throughout your explanation, you seem to be highlighting details on the levy. Can you please tell us the economic implication of this E-levy, and how you, as you compare the E-levy to current levy? At the time that E-levy was imposed on us, the fuel price then was around 18 cedis. As it speaks today, the fuel price around 12 cedis, and even LPG from 50 per kilo today this morning was ACD 20%. Why do you then compare that to this situation that government has no business of taxing the fuel from?
Thank you.
Please.
We shall respond to that. There are two questions in that: the economic implications, and then the argument that fuel prices are low, so it's okay to slap a tax now. I'll respond to both. Let's take a few more. We'll respond.
Yes, please. Your name and then your station.
So my name is Steven.
It's okay, we can hear you.
Sure.
Because they have the S1, it's not good enough. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, you alluded to the fact that Ghanaians did not get opportunity to discuss the use of levy before it was introduced and passed. But then, among the things that you are going to implement, I'm happy that you said you are going to engage various stakeholders, especially those in the transport sector, and then others. But I would like to ask you, would you consider doing so by getting closer to them at the various bus terminals, churches, mosques,
We have started.
and other public places, to let them know the real impact, because that is where they will feel this impact. So when you get closer to them, especially in the morning, and then you engage, then Ghanaians will begin to know that this is what they are going to do, as you have alluded to in this
Thank you.
All right, so,
We'll take a few.
yes, Ibrahim. Ibrahim.
Thank you very much, Leader. First of all, I wanted to respond to this because that has been the defense from government, that if proceeds of ESLA had been properly utilized by your administration, we wouldn't be here today. And two, in preferring solutions as alternatives to what government has done, we talked about adding these cost items to the power purchase agreement through renegotiation. And that will have reflected in the tariffs that Ghanaians will be paying for electricity. How is that different from what has been?
It's a very good question.
Very, very good.
Very good question. I'll respond to that.
So, how many more do you want to take?
Let's take a final one. And then.
Okay, I'll give him one, and I'll use my powers to give you the final one.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. I listened to your question. You calling for...
You listen to...
Your presentation, statement. You're calling for total withdrawal. Do we have problem at the energy sector? And what percentage of levy will really help? And lastly, my worry, as you indicated, that is sneaked it in. Looking at their numbers and your numbers, I think there is this developing tendency at your end. Why is it that you said mighty minority, but the numbers over there, to tell Ghanaians that you are widely awake, we don't get the numbers over there. How are you addressing that one?
See why I wasn't giving you the opportunity. Please. It's not a fair question. What is that? Yes, yes, please. It wasn't there. Yes, please. Is it Metro? Very well. Please proceed.
So let me respond to this
So
first
please
set of
put on your
questions.
microphone.
Oh, okay.
Let me respond to the first set of questions about the economic implications. So again, I'll take you back to the past. When a 1% levy was introduced on transactions that people elect to do, we were told that the economic implications were such that it will bring economic hardship, it will contribute to inflation, it will add to the difficulties of people. Today, an 8% levy has been imposed across board on all fuel, or at least petrol and diesel. As a start, you can clearly tell that as the driver unions are beginning to warn, eventually it will catch up with fuel prices. And when it does catch up with fuel prices, when fuel prices go up, the transmission effect is such that the prices of goods and services generally will begin to go up. Now, secondly, you are asking a question about public engagement. Yes, we intend to engage in various forms. Today we are outlining to you some of the things that we are going to be doing. We are not ending here. We'll be engaging at various levels to get people to understand the real incidence of this taxation and how it affects their daily lives and how it translates into the prices of goods and services as they go up. There was a question about, will passing it through the tariffs be any different? And let me answer. You see, tariffs are not set by government suo motu. Tariffs are set by the PURC. So the government will sign its PPAs and the power producers will go and make a case to an adjudicator who consider all of it and decide how much of it can be passed through. When government chooses not to put the fuel purchase and all the other matters into the PPA, but to do it on the side, to create a debt and then to come and slap you with a levy, there's nobody to look at that and to say that this can be passed on or this should be absorbed by the power producers. And that's the big difference. That's why we're saying that if you really mean well, let it go through the system and let the PURC and other entities have an opportunity to examine it and make a decision what you should absorb and what should be passed on. If government decides to keep it on the side and then charge you 8% to pay for it, you should be worried. There's a question about what percentage of levy will be a good idea. We've been clear. We are not asking for any percentage as a good idea. We are saying that listen to the driver unions and the oil marketing companies and the general public, pull back, engage some more, and find better ways of doing this other than just saying that because we have the numbers in the chamber and because we have goodwill, we will just slap it on people. Now, there was a question about the operations in the chamber. We have our strategies that we use to litigate all sorts of matters in the chamber. When the majority side decides that they will not in good faith advertise ahead of time that we want to introduce this tax. You were all here. You recall when we were approving the finance minister, and we drew his attention to the fact that the claim that he will increase revenue without increasing taxes cannot be true. I'm sure you were here. You recall. And that if indeed he could do that, we will support him. Because they knew at the time that what they were saying was not true, on the day that they were going to bring, in fact, the day of the budget, did any of you hear them advertise this particular levy? On the day that the business statement was read, prior to the sitting, did any of you see this on the order paper? So I'm not the one saying it. You are witnesses. Now, when they demonstrate such bad faith that they won't advertise it, they won't let you know, and last minute they will tell you that we have the numbers, we'll push the numbers through, what are you left with? You have to let them have their way and draw the attention of the public to what they are doing. And that's exactly what we are doing at this point in time. Finally, there was a question on what sort of renegotiation. So, first of all, this issue of energy sector debt is not new. Recall that when we assumed power, it was at $2.5 billion, and the World Bank forecast said that it was going to get up to about $12 billion if nothing was done about it. I'm sure you've all read those reports. What our administration did was to start the process of renegotiation. You saw many times when IPPs were threatened that they'll switch off the power if we don't pay. And our teams, I recall Dr. Amin Anta and other teams at Finance and Energy, had extensive negotiations with them to ensure that they didn't carry through their threat. That is what a government does. So that you keep on the light without necessarily passing on bills to the Ghanaian people. That is the kind of negotiation that we're expecting this administration to put up when the IPPs back. Not just to say that we have goodwill, so Ghanaians swallow 8% tariff. There was a question about ESLA and its usage, and that you should blame the MPP for this levy. I'll let Honorable Abuaje handle that.
Thank you.
All right, so you're watching a live news conference from Parliament House, that's the minority side, on both the Energy Committee and also on the Economic Committee. And they are reacting to the 1 cedi imposition on every litre of fuel through the ESLA, or the amendment that government passed in Parliament last week. Remember that President Mahama has signed off on it. Implementation was expected to start today, but the GRA says that they are allowing some kind of consultation and recalibration before that will be done. So implementation has been pushed to the 16th of June, that's this coming Monday. But the minority says that it is not a good, passage. It is not a good tax imposition, and they are asking government to withdraw it, allow for some consultation on the way forward. But on their own, they say that they will be coming up with a series of, programs to drum home the need for government not to burden the Ghanaian taxpayer with this amount. Let's bring in some reactions on this matter, and of course, the ranking member on the Energy Committee in Parliament, Emmanuel Bejra, joins me on the phone. Honorable, good afternoon, and a pleasure to have you here on the pause.
Good afternoon, Elton. I'm not a ranking member. I'm the chairman of the...
Forgive me.
You are reducing my post, Elton.
Forgive me, my apologies. So the chairman of the Mines and Energy Committee in Parliament, Mr. Emmanuel Bejra, is joining us for some reaction. So you've heard your colleagues on the other side. First, perhaps if you can help us get some clarity on what exactly this levy is seeking to cure. Is it to address the debt in the energy sector or to buy fuel to power the plants that generate power for us?
Thank you very much, Elton, and good afternoon to your cherished viewers and listeners. Elton, let me also correct you that the committee is now Energy Committee, not Mines and Energy. It used to be Mines and Energy. Now it is Energy Committee.
Okay.
And so our jurisdiction is over
the energy sector.
Ministry of Energy and Green Transition, which has oversight over petroleum and power as well. Elton, as you know, answer your question, this levy is basically, if you look at the memorandum that was sent to us from the Ministry of Finance, is basically to buy fuel, to buy liquid fuel. Now, you notice that last 2 weeks, when we were meeting with the Minister for Energy and Green Transition, he mentioned that we have shortfall and that if nothing is done about getting liquid fuel, the IPPs will shut out their machines. And so we probed further and got to know that liquid fuel was not factored into the computation of tariff by PURC. And so we met with PRC, and they also confirmed that liquid fuel wasn't part of the computation of tariff. And so government all these years have been taking care of the liquid fuel to propel their generators and their engines as thermal plants. And so when current government noticed that the previous government owes a lot, could not even pay for to our IPP, could not pay for the fuels that they are supposed to use, we thought that, well, the best thing to do is to, just add 1 cedi to a liter of fuel. That's petrol, diesel, marine gas, for us to use the short, there is a small window for, a fall for us, in which we decided that why don't we use that to pay for fuel, and that will not increase the fuel prices. If you manage your economy very well, and you are able to make gains through the management of the economy, and your CD is doing very well against major currencies, and there is a shortfall, and world market price of fuel is also going down. That's the difference. We want to use it to buy fuel so that our plants can work and there will not be any shutdown of our plants. Okay. That's exactly what this government has done. And I don't see any problem with it at all, where I see it, because we are not going to increase the X-pump. That, those from where you are buying from the filling station, there's not going to be any increment at all. It's just that government will not reduce the price again. And if there's any reduction beyond that, it will also reduce.
All right.
That's exactly what
and then kindly hold for me for just a second. Let me bring in Samuel Amwaku, who is the Deputy Public Relations Officer with the GPRTU. They've made it clear that they may be embarking on a strike tomorrow in protest against this levy. Mr. Mwakmo, if you are there, good afternoon, welcome to the program. Mr. Mwakmo, if you can unmute for me. Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Samuel Amoah. Well, we'll try and get Mr. Samuel Amoah's attention. He's the Deputy PRO of the GPRT, but still on the line with me is the Chairman of the Mines Committee. So, Honorable Bejua, are you able to tell us how much, for example, the country require in terms of fuel on a yearly basis to power the thermal plants?
Well, as put out by the Minister for Energy, every year from beginning of, we need not less than 1.2 billion US dollars, which is about 12.6 billion Ghana cedis.
Right.
And so that's at the exchange rate of 1 cedi 50 pesos. And so we need close to 12.6 billion. And so the 5.6 billion is just half of what we are anticipating. The 5.7 billion that will be raking from the 1 cedi on every liter is just about half of what we are looking for.
So the rest is coming from where exactly?
Additional funds.
So the additional funds will come from where?
From government. I mean, government has been taking care of the 12.6 billion all this while. And we thought that it's time for us, if we don't want PURC to increase tariff. In fact, when we engage PRC says that increment of tariff will be not less than 50% of a current electricity tariff. Is that what Ghanaians are looking for? Is that what MPP people want us to do? We are not prepared to increase any electricity tariff. In fact, the president has made it clear that he does not want to increase electricity tariff. And so the best thing for us to do is to cushion Ghanaians by using this levy to increase just 1 cedi on every liter. In Ghanaians, I believe a lot more people understand us than the minority that is crying wolf with that, you know. If you ask them carefully, they'll tell you that they are not against it. All they are saying is that there should be consultation, and I believe the consultation is also going on. COMAC, that came out recently, you say that they've not been consulted. Government consulted them, and they released there's a press release from COMAC that, yes, indeed, they have been consulted, and they are with us.
Kwajo Mponkoma was ranking on the Economy Committee, and of course, Mr. Abuaje, the ranking on the the Energy Committee, both are saying at this news conference that we brought it on some few minutes ago that there was no consultation even at the committee level, and that this, first of all, was not on the other paper. It came in an addendum under a certificate of agency, so there was no room for even members of parliament to peruse whatever government was seeking to do, only to, according to him, to be, for want of a better word, swindling them under the cover of majoritarian rule in parliament.
These are all populist way of doing things, populist way of attracting, national. And I believe that Ghanaians will begin to know who the minority are. If you really carefully want to help Ghanaians, the floor of parliament is there for you to debate. Elsie, you have been a correspondent from parliament over the years. You don't need to walk out. If you walk out, you are giving the opportunity to the ruling government or whoever is there to continue to do their debate and pass the law. Why didn't they stay on the floor of the House to debate for Ghanaians to know that indeed the debate is against or for? They were not there. They just walked out. If indeed we have not consulted them, why didn't they walk out when we were at the committee level? At the committee level, if you look at the report, it was stated that it was a majority report. And if it was a majority report, you should stay in the House to take the vote. Why did they walk out? What were they afraid of? And they should stop throwing dust into people's eyes that they were not consulted. They were not consulted at the committee meeting and then committee level. And then you say that it was a majority decision. If you were not there, we have the answer. We have the minutes there that they were all there. My deputy ranking was there. My ranking himself was there. I was there. I joined the finance committee. Honorable Anta, who was the former minister and as well as the minister for ranking member of finance. We're all there. We all looked at this, and then when we got to the floor, they walked out. They should stop throwing that into people's eyes.
So, Honor, we are saying that this matter was discussed at the finance committee before it was brought on the floor.
The energy committee, leadership of energy committee, were also invited. Okay. My ranking was there. My deputy ranking was there. My vice chair, including myself, were all there. It was on the floor that they walked out. And so they should stop deceiving Ghanaians. I don't know what they will gain from deceiving the public by saying that they were not consulted. Even if you were not consulted at the committee level, why didn't you make your voice made? They made their voice made, and they said they were not going to. It's not going to be a consensus, and so we wrote a report and said it was majority report. I was there myself. So on the floor, come and advance your argument. Come and debate your argument. You don't go to the public and say that they were not consulted. If you were not consulted, why did you walk out? Why didn't you make your argument known?
The other concern, and I'm sure that you can help address this for us this afternoon, for a lot of Ghanaians or some who are complaining about the effect this will have on transport fares and our daily lives. E-levy for some was optional, but in terms of fuel, it will affect every facet of the economy. GPRTU says that they may go on a strike tomorrow. We are being told that they are discussing the way forward as far as this matter is concerned, because already we had a windfall resulting in drop in petroleum prices. Now, on the 16th, if this is finally out and rolling, the 1 cedi imposition will mean that what was, from January up to now, we've seen only 2 Ghana cedis, 4 pesos reduction in fuel prices. And that obviously is going to get them to either they increase fares that they've reduced or, just, take the heat that comes with it. What will be your reaction to those who think that this will impoverish them in a way because of how sensitive fuel matters are to our economy?
My brother, we kept saying, and I have to educate every Ghanaian, that there will not be any increment to the fuel prices. There will not be any increment. And you can take it from me as a chair of energy committee. There is not going to be any increment. All we are seeing is that there's going to be a further reduction. That further reduction was what we have factored into to make it 1 Ghana cedi. And so, at the moment, as well as looking at our economy, the cedi appreciating against dollar, we are saying that difference is what we are using to buy fuel. And so there will not be increment. If the transport owner decides to reduce prices as a result of petroleum rates, the same price that they are buying it today, they will continue to buy it. So I don't see why they will go on whatever it is, other strike or demonstration, because there's not going to be any increment. It's going to be the same amount.
And then finally, how do we ensure that the revenue that will come out of this levy will be used specifically for the purpose for which it's been imposed on Ghanaians? Because, there's precedent to it. We've been paying toll recovery levy for years. Toll is still in debt. So how do we ensure that this will help deal with a major challenge in the energy sector, and that is, fuel matters relating to debt?
John, if you hear the president clearly stated that there was going to be an audit of this account every now and then. It's not going to be yearly. It's going to be quarterly, as they do what we call the quarterly windows. And so we have factored that in our law. The law says that there will be auditing, and so this auditing will come to the floor of the House for people to know how much has been raked in and how much has been used for this particular, levy. And so there's no fear at all. The money will not be sent anywhere. From where I sit and what I've gathered, it will be used judiciously by the GRA.
All right. Chairman of the Mines Committee, Honorable Emmanuel Bejua, thank you so much for your time with us this afternoon. Okay, so still on this matter, remember that the Ghana Revenue Authority, they have the responsibility of collecting the revenue that will come out of this levy and any other revenue that government imposes on the nation. Now, they issued a statement this morning postponing the enforcement of this revenue measure to next Monday, 16th June 2025. And they've explained it in that news release. But they've also warned that those who may not want to charge will face sanctions. Listen to the Chief Revenue Officer in charge of policy and programs at the GRA, Smile Agwemenu.
In 2025 this year again, start of this month, government thought it wise to consolidate all these taxes and then assign all of them as the tax for collection by GRA. So NPA ceased to be collecting what they used to collect as the price stabilization levy. The price stabilization levy, the sanitation and pollution levy, the energy sector recovery levy, and all those taxes have been consolidated into one tax, which is the energy sector shortfall levy.
Okay.
So this is what had been increased by 1 cedi for some products, and for some of them by 20 Ghana pesos.
Okay.
So if you look at petrol, if you look at diesel, as we popularly known, they have been increased by 1 cedi. So what we do is to, one, configure the system that we use for the administration of petroleum liftings and payments to add the 1 cedi collection per litre to it, which GRA has done. 2 is to issue a Commissioner General directive, which we call the Tariff Interpretative Order. That details the intention of government, the implementation of the Act, and how we are expected to collect the Act, and which of the products it affects. That has also been issued, and in that one also comes with the start date of the implementation by GRA, which has been communicated as the 16th of this month. Then we direct the oil marketing companies, we direct the officers themselves who are also at the depots, what exactly is expected of them. So every concerned stakeholder will be notified through this tariff interpretative order, which has been done.
Right, so we await the official rollout on Monday, 16th June, but ahead of that, they are consulting all interest groups on this one. Let me bring in Samuel Amwa, he's Deputy PRO of the GPRTU. Mr. Amwa, good to have you. Good afternoon.
And thank you for having me.
Great. So, clarify this for me. Are you still going on the strike tomorrow?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me use this opportunity to say good afternoon to yourself and your cherished viewers and listeners. Yes, the strike action has been suspended based on a meeting the leadership had with the ministry just this afternoon. You know, our issue was that we don't want the situation whereby some amount of money is going to be added to, the fuel product as we go to the pump to buy. And, quite recently, there has been a reduction on our transport fare. And, as we used to say, the transport fares was reduced only, on the petroleum product. That was the reduction petroleum product. And, who is that when fuel price get to around 12 cities, that is when we would reduce our transport fares. And when it got to 13 cities, we did that based on the information the ministry gave us that the next pricing window is going to reduce to the 12 cities, around 12 cities per litre, of which we've seen that. So our problem was that we don't want to see, additional cost on the petroleum product again. So when the ministry engaged us, they made us understood that it is not going to affect the pump and there is not going to be any change, as of now. And then we told them, we asked them how are they going to do it, because should it go high again, then it means it's going to add another operational cost to our operations. And they gave us their word that it's not going to change, and even the coming 16th, that is next week Monday, that they are going to commence, or it's going to take effect. We are not going to see any change at the pump when we go out there to buy fuel. So we understood, it's okay, fine. Then we'll stand by and look at what will happen next. And should we see a change, that is a rising change, then it means that we have to advise ourselves. So as I'm speaking now, the strike action has been suspended, waiting for what will happen next week, Monday, to see whether it will go up or it will still stand the same.
So that means that on Monday, if we don't see a change in terms of pricing, you will call it off completely. The reason you've suspended is that you want to see evidence of this on Monday.
That is correct. That is correct. Because we don't want a situation whereby we go to the pump and we are buying fuel, and this time around, once it is going to be added to it again, it means that money is going to come from, the pockets of our drivers, and that is what we are preventing. So if it happens that yes, on next week when we go to the fuel pump to buy the fuel and it's still the same, praise God. If it changes, then we see, that it has risen up again. Then it means we have to advise ourselves and, do what will help us to, continue with our business.
But you also had issues with lack of consultation on this matter. One of the reasons you raised in your news conference that announced your industrial action. What about that? Has that also been addressed for you at this meeting?
Yes, we made them understood that we are major stakeholders and that, should something of this sort, there has to be a consultation, because they can't just, wake up and slap our face with, all this debt, because we are going to pay the debt. We are family members. And we, the family members, if the family, is in debt and they are to, share this debt among the family members, and some of the family members will not be invited to explain to them why they should pay that debt, then it means that, they are not being fair to us. So we addressed that and we made them understood that. And, well, they apologized to that and they promised, not to keep updating us whenever things, happen this way.
So this afternoon, you are telling your members to work fully tomorrow?
Yes, that is correct. I'm speaking on behalf of GPRTU as the Deputy PRO that we have suspended the strike action, waiting for what will happen next week, Monday. That is the 16th, when this one Ghana cedi levy is being implemented. All
right, Mr. Samuel Amwa, thank you so much. He's the Deputy Public Relations Officer with the GPRTU. And the news is that they are no longer embarking on a strike tomorrow because they've been told that the imposition of 1 cedi levy on a litre of fuel will not affect prices of petroleum products beginning Monday. And they are holding government to that word. And so if by Monday they don't see any change in terms of upward review of petroleum products, they will call off the strike completely. But for now, it is suspended. Let's take a short break here on the pulse, brought to you by Defend Drill Coffee Mixer. When we return, we'll talk about another strike that is already ongoing. And this strike has been called by the Nurse and Midwife Association over government failure to implement agreed upon conditions of service. We'll return and take you to the walls to see what is happening there when we return.